This fragment, titled Alone, reads like this: If it's not one thing, it's nothing, if we're keeping score. Commentary on the Arithmetic of Meaninglessness. Introduction, the sparse ledger of the soul. At first glance, the short fragment, if it's not one thing, it's nothing, if we're keeping score, reads like a simple twist on a familiar cliché. It dances at the edge of idiom, echoing that tired line, if it's not one thing, it's another, only to deny the another, deny the existence of even one. What we have here is a collapse, a failure of accumulation, a moment where the scoreboard, if one is kept at all, shows zeros across the board. And this is what makes Alone such a brutal little instrument. It offers no comfort, no poetic flourish, no hidden message of hope. It is precise, efficient, and merciless in tone. It's a whispered accounting of the soul, ending in a shrug that knows the tally. It knows the cost of self-deception, and it asks us to look closely at the empty scoreboard we've built to justify a life. This commentary will walk the line between existential philosophy, linguistic deconstruction, personal alienation, and the machinery of measurement. For the line that connects one thing, nothing, and keeping score is not a narrative line. It is a fault line. It divides illusion from clarity. It tells us the truth, but it doesn't offer a path forward. We are, after all, talking about being alone. But more than that, we are talking about the kind of alone that begins not in absence, but in arithmetic. The idiom reversed, where's the another? The standard phrase, if it's not one thing, it's another, is designed to express the weary relentlessness of life, that things go wrong, that after solving one crisis, a second appears, that existence is a series of interruptions. It is fundamentally a phrase of inclusion, a world crowded with burdens, with interruptions, with things. But if it's not one thing, it's nothing, removes that second clause. It replaces the another with a void. This is not an omission. It is a choice, a subtraction. Where the cliché acknowledges a full and cluttered life, the revised fragment points to absence. It implies that there never was a second thing, or perhaps not even the first. If you look closely at what you thought was there, you might find that it's already vanished. Or worse, that it was never there at all. So instead of the endless parade of grievances, we are left with the silence of a room that will not speak back, a calendar of blank pages, a clock that ticks only for you. This is not pessimism. This is not melancholy. This is inventory. Year 3. If we're keeping score, the clause of judgment, the final phrase. If we're keeping score is the most poisonous. It sounds harmless at first, light, even sarcastic, but structurally it is a conditional clause that rewrites everything before it. It reframes the previous terms not as truths, but as outcomes dependent on the mode of evaluation. That is, only if we are keeping score, then it's nothing. This opens the door to a harsh realization that the emptiness may not lie in the thing itself, but in the system of accounting. What happens when we start keeping score of our friendships, our memories, our sacrifices, our efforts? What happens when we use a ledger to calculate meaning? We may find the numbers don't add up. In the economy of affection, of presence, of being held or being seen, there is no currency that can be recorded or retrieved. We can try. Some do, but most find that the ledger itself lies, or worse, that it tells the truth in a language that only reveals the deficit. And to say, if we're keeping score, is to admit that one has begun to quantify something unquantifiable. And this act of measurement reveals the nothingness, which leads us to this. Alone is not just a condition of being without others. It is a condition of seeing clearly. The mathematics of emptiness. Let's walk this as a mathematical sentence. If it's not one, then it's nothing, null, under conditions of measurement, F-score. Or, put differently, in the event that presence is not confirmed and evaluation is applied, then absence is total. That is a brutal form of logic. It implies that subjectivity, your own sense that there was something, is not sufficient under the rules of keeping score. The scorekeeper has no use for maybes, no tolerance for emotional truth. It says, if you had no hand to hold, no voice that said, me too, no gift that was freely given, then when you go to check the scoreboard, there's nothing there, not even a foul. That's the part that kills people. Not the loss itself, but the silence after it. Sprots. Love, trust, and the problem of invisible points. Let's consider now what kinds of things are most painful to discover as nothing when keeping score. Love, trust, time given, promises made, words said once and never repeated. All of these are invisible currencies that we believe accrue, that our presence in someone's life means something, that our small gestures, unremarked, unremembered, somehow exist. But when the moment of reckoning comes and we tally, the score may read 0, not because it meant nothing at the time, but because we had no method for retention, no external proof, no reciprocation, no return. And here's the danger. If we begin to suspect that there are no points for love, for effort, for belief, then the game ends. The motivation vanishes. One is left not just alone, but inert. That is what alone describes. The solitude of someone who has checked the books, who has audited the system, who has finally stopped pretending. Sixth, the violence of measurement. To keep score is to take measurement of the invisible. That is already dangerous. But what makes it fatal is the requirement that the score reflect reality. The fragment doesn't say it might be nothing. It doesn't say you might be mistaken. It says it is nothing if we're keeping score. That if cuts like a knife, because for the person who is not keeping score, for the child who loves unmeasured, for the fool who believes without receipt, there may be presence, there may be warmth, there may be grace, but for the one who finally tries to count, to demand truth, they find themselves alone. This is why so many people delay this moment, why they avoid tallying the relationships in their life, because they suspect that to keep score is to see, and to see is to see nothing, and to see nothing is to collapse. Shaotin's 7th, inversion and collapse. A brief on negation. Let's take a structural look at the fragment's clause inversion. If it's not one thing, this begins as a complaint or colloquial shrug. It's nothing. Instead of escalation, another problem, we descend. We hit the floor. If we're keeping score, the whole thing is revealed as conditional. You asked for the numbers? Here they are. 0. This form is a downward spiral. It begins with the appearance of something, one thing. Then it negates that. Then it posits total absence. Then it attributes that absence to the act of evaluating itself, which means this is not just a fragment about loneliness, it is a fragment about the philosophical death of value. 8th, solitude versus aloneness. We must now distinguish between solitude and aloneness. Solitude is a condition of being apart. It can be chosen. It can be sacred. Aloneness, as invoked by this fragment, is something different. It is the realization that your attachments do not count. It is not being without people. It is being without evidence. You may be in a room full of others. You may be surrounded by family, colleagues, lovers, children, laughter, and still know that in the accounting of meaning, none of it will hold when the score is called. Because no one was keeping score in the same direction. No one thought they owed you, or worse, they already believe they paid you back. Aloneness in this form is the silence that comes after the scoreboard lights up with a single empty digit. 9. If we're keeping score, the devil's clause. Let's examine this final phrase once more. It's not a neutral if. It's not academic. This if is razor sharp. It is the devil's clause. It says, you wanted fairness, you wanted proof. Fine. Here's your proof. Nothing. It doesn't say you're wrong. It says your system demands this outcome. It's not personal. It's arithmetic. It's what happens when you measure a dream with a ruler. 10. The futility of retrospective meaning. Here is the final cruelty. We often seek to assign value after the fact. We say, it must have mattered. I gave so much. But alone says, not if you're keeping score. Because time past does not equal investment. Because presence is not possession. Because love, given without return, cannot be proven under this system. And that's the fatal insight of the fragment. You thought you had one thing. You thought you could build from it. But if you must ask for the balance sheet, if you must demand to know where the points are, then you are already too far gone. The act of asking breaks the spell. The love evaporates. The trust is retroactively nullified. because keeping score is itself a betrayal of the unspoken, and betrayal is not counted in halves. Iskiro. 11th, a closing image, the cold scoreboard. Picture now a massive stadium, an arena of life. You've played the game, you've run the laps, you've passed the ball, you've shown up, and now you glance upward, finally toward the Jumbotron, just to check, just to know, and the screen is black, then it flickers on, and the number reads 0.0. No fanfare, no explanation. You were not ignored, you were not punished, you were simply not scored, and there is nothing more alone than that. 12th conclusion, a world without points. So what do we make of alone? It is a knife disguised as a shrug, a philosophical act of inventory, a refusal to play the old game. It denies comfort, it denies self-deception, it denies even the bitterness of complaint. What it gives us instead is a clean floor, no clutter, no noise, only truth. If it's not one thing, it's nothing if we're keeping score. So stop keeping score, or admit the zero. Either way, the echo of that line will stay with you, long after the lights are out, long after the game is over, long after you realize the scoreboard was not broken, it was honest, and you were alone.